Gabby, coming forward from Hamaru Housing. Welcome.
Thank you. I'm Helen Melrose. I'm the chair of Hamaru Housing Limited, and or LP rather, which is managed by Hamaru Auckland Limited as the general partner of a limited partnership. And
Tēnā koutou, I'm Gabby Cleese, I'm the CEO of Hamaru Housing.
Who's that? Welcome.
thank you. This is the first time that we have appeared as an organisation. We're very new. We've only been in business for one full year, plus a few months now. I know that you've received the presentation previously. We're very happy to either go through it or just respond to questions.
I think go through it. If just you want to look through it quickly. Yep.
Yeah, good. Sorry.
Oh, sorry.
Our fault. Excellent. So we've just set out some diagrams of the structure, which, as I said, is a limited partnership. It's quite an unusual structure in this sort of scenario. It's a partnership between Auckland Council as to 49% and the Selwyn Foundation as to 51%. Auckland Council has leased to Hamaru Housing the land on which all the older persons housing sits, and that's for up to 100 years at a peppercorn rental. We also have a long-term plan renewal funding up to 2025 and a credit facility of $20 million provided by Auckland Council. And Panuku monitors the business interests on behalf of Auckland Council. Selwyn Foundation have provided an interest-free working capital loan facility to Hamaru that's due for repayment next year, and we're on target to repay that on due date. We also receive corporate services and elderly care expertise from Selwyn, who are very experienced in this area. Panuku, as I said, manages our relationship, and they also mandated to deliver new council development projects to us. There is a project underway in Henderson, and Gabby can talk to that later. The limited partnership is a registered community housing provider, which means we have access to the IRRS rental, and that's significant for us to maintain our sustainability as an ongoing organisation. We provide tenancy, asset and facilities management, and with a focus on wellness. There are no dividends from this organisation. All profits are ring-fenced in the organisation. We have a purpose, which is to provide housing communities for older people by creating environments that support resilience and connectivity. And our vision is to see that older people have affordable homes in communities that are safe, age-friendly and caring. And we have a set of values which includes caring for our tenants and colleagues, being accountable, working with integrity, and have responsiveness to our tenants. Governance, we're a small board, 5 directors, 2 from nominated by Auckland Council, and that's Matthew Harker and Kerry Hitchcock. The Selwyn appointees are Vicky Sykes, myself, and Gary Smith, who's also the CEO of the Selwyn Foundation. Snapshot is of more detailed information, so I'll just hand over to Gabby to talk to this.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you. We're delighted to be here today. It's lovely to meet and say hello again to a number of councillors who've met with us and been to some of our events, including the 54 events we had around all of the villages for our anniversary celebration in July. So it's lovely to have this opportunity to give everyone a bit more information about Homeru. So we have 62 villages across Auckland, end of June 1471 tenants. That waxes and wanes sort of every month. 99% of our occupiable units are occupied. We have a number of units which are unable to be tenanted because they need to be refurbished, various states of repair. There's a location across the villages. The average weekly rent is $144. And there are 1,412 units currently across the portfolio. Oops. Yeah. So 100% of our tenants are sourced from the social housing register. We take all tenants. The criteria for eligibility is that you must have an immediate need for housing. You must have be nominally able to get the pension. Your assets of no more than 40,000. For a single, or 60,000 for a couple, and that you can live within the community. So that cohort is a very similar cohort to all of those people who are currently sitting on the social housing register. These are the people of highest need. So when we took over from council on the 1st of July 2017, there were about 250 or so people on their wait list. So we took those people with their permission, we transferred their details across to the Ministry of Social Development for assessment for the social housing register. And about half of those people we've managed to put onto the register. The other half were people who didn't have an immediate need, or their circumstances had changed, or they didn't really want the kind of properties that we had, or in the area we had them. So 1,412 units, we spend a lot of our time on repairs and maintenance. We had a variable stock of properties when we took over. The average age was 47 years. And that was one of the reasons for the formation. You'll all be very well aware of the joint venture. One was to be able to utilise greater government funding to make the current state of properties in a better fit for purpose for now and for the future. And the other is to have better utilisation of the land. So we have a range of properties, those we're going to maintain, those that we are going to intensify in areas where that would be of value, and other few properties which are really in the wrong place. They're not near a bus stop, they're really no longer needed, or they're rather too small, and they're not the best use of the resources that the partners have. So we have a CAPEX program. We have 23 staff, so a really small team, and everyone pretty much has to do everything. And people ask me, what did you look for when you recruited the staff? Because I was the first employee in the organisation. So what we looked for was really people with a heart in the first instance. Obviously, if you're an accountant, you need the skill base, and if you're a facilities people, you need to understand facilities, but you really have to have a heart. You have to have empathy. You really have to understand the needs and the desires of old people, and that's not in the paternalistic sense. That's, you really want to help our cohorts and our constituents and our tenants to live the best life that they want to live. Not what we think they want to live, but they want to live. And that starts with a house. That's just the beginning. I was speaking to a journalist from the Herald yesterday, and he said to me, "Oh, right, yeah, the house." I said, "Yeah, the house is just the beginning." So we can try and provide the best house we can for the people. But in addition, our remit is to try and grow the communities, the village communities, to engage within the village, and also, very importantly, to make engagement outside the village possible. So our community staff, of which there are 8 out there, we have one community manager for 180 or so tenants. Their role is to get out there and run those villages and to help people engage in networks. So they spend a lot of time working with the local board, or working with community trusts or religious groups, and that's where Selwyn is critical. And I have to say, the council were incredibly wise to choose Selwyn Foundation as a partner, because not only do they have 65 plus years of experience managing and looking after and supporting older people, They also have a great network deep into the community. And as our organisation, you know, our staff use that and we really value that ability. We work very closely with the Selwyn staff. We also work closely with other organisations, Presbyterian Support. You know, to be honest, anyone who's out there who can add value to our tenants, we're going to go for it and we're going to work with them. And if they're experts in their field, that's fantastic. Because our role as a community housing provider is to enable services, not to necessarily provide them directly, to enable services, which might be bus tours, which might be local knitting services, which might be the library, it might be helping our tenants volunteer, because, you know, these might be older people, but they have a great value to add to the community. And one of the things we've found out over the last year and a half is that people need a connection to the community so they can have a better life. And that connection might involve working in the community, it might involve volunteering, but whatever it involves them in the community that they are used to, that they like and they want to be, in the community where their children went to school, where their families are. So one of the challenges for us is we may well have vacancies down in Franklin as an example, but if somebody wants to be living in the North Shore, they don't really want to be living in Franklin. So the challenge for this organisation and the challenge for all of us and you as shareholders in the organisation is to make sure that we can have the volume and supply to meet the needs of the people where they want to live. So meaningful tenant engagement, this is one of our community events. These are all of our tenants having a fabulous sing-song and a morning tea. So again, 8 community managers, we have service desk 24/7. I take after calls from our service desk. We have a service after hours that would go to maintenance, or if you've lost your key, it would go to a security firm, or if it's anything that requires some kind of, you know, judgment, or somebody's died, or there's an issue, then those calls come to me. And I do that because I felt that as the leader of the organisation, it was important to have my feet on the ground, to know that was going on, to have my finger in the pie, if you like, to be right across it. So we do that. We've now got an operations manager on board and he'll start taking up on-call for us. But that was really key to our tenants, to really understand that we were there and we care and we were visible. So you may have seen the village signage, you may have seen our cars, you may have seen our staff. Everybody has a uniform who works out in the field, because it's really important that we are visible and we're there. We ran a tenant engagement survey. We did exactly the one that Auckland Council Housing for Older People had done the previous year. And we did that mindfully because we wanted to see where we sat in the benchmark. And where we sat was no better than, actually. We weren't worse than, which was a really good thing, but we were no better than. And that's fine, because actually a lot of the tenants sort of might have thought we were still council. Maybe we hadn't got the message out there stronger that we were making the changes. So following that, we had a lot of work to be done around the communication, around the signage. So we had village signs put up, we have communication to the tenants, because what we had from the feedback survey is that tenants want to know what's happening in their village. You know, this is probably news to nobody, but it seems to be news to me that they don't really want to know that we've got this fabulous building, and I'm looking at you, Penny, that's going to be built in Henderson, which is absolutely fabulous for all the people in that area. But our people down in Manurewa really don't necessarily care about that. What they want to know is what's happening in their community. So, you know, we've gone to a lot of effort to make sure we are telling people what's happening in their community, what's happening with their maintenance. So every quarter we send a report that tells them the maintenance that's gone on, because even though they might not have had a problem, we've been in the village and we're doing this. So really, you know, how are we spending their money? I bore the staff to tears, but I keep saying to them that every 3.5 hours of their time is a week's rent. It's a week's rent for one of our tenants, so we have to be incredibly mindful about the way we spend their money, and it has to be good value. So that's the way we try and operate. So we have newsletters and we have information and we have websites and we have feedbacks, and we do all of the kind of things that a good business does. Notice boards. So the feedback from the staff tenants has been fantastic. There's just some examples there. We have, you know, dozens and dozens and dozens of examples of people. And the best feedback I find is when things have gone wrong. You know, we've made a mistake, there's been a problem. but we've resolved it, and we've managed to turn something that was potentially very negative into very positive. So those are the things that I really value. But the tenants seem to be happy, and they seem to be settled, and they seem to be engaged and cheerful about what we're doing. So here's a picture of one of our lovely tenants who's about to go on a bus trip with Selwyn. Selwyn managed to get some funding through the Stevenson Charitable Trust to get 3 vans, of which the Selwyn provide those for us. So we have a service level agreement with Selwyn Community to provide services to allow our people to go out and about, to have strength and balance programs, to run gyms, to do a whole range of activities, and that's just the beginning of what we're trying to do. We're trying to make a difference, but we're also trying to monitor what we do. So we have a lot of reports, as you'd imagine. One of the things that we're looking at right now is a little device which you can put on the wall of the unit. It's about this big. It's a remote device, half the size of a small smoke alarm, and that can monitor the moisture and the temperature of the unit. So we're going to use that as a pilot to see, we make changes when we do renovations, how much change does that make? And one of the other things we've found out, which is, commonly known, is a lot of the moisture in buildings may not be from the building itself, from the way the people use it. So when people have an issue with moisture, we spend a lot of time with them. We've just produced leaflets, and we can help them monitor live feedback around how they're managing their own units, because these are elderly people and they may not like opening the windows. They may be from a different culture that doesn't like that, or whatever the issue is. So we do our best to not only fix up the unit if it's leaking or if there are external issues, but help our tenants live a better life in their homes. So we have a range of wraparound services. So, vulnerability for older people, it's secure housing, loneliness and social isolation, financial hardship and the impact of health-related conditions. In mental health, my background is my profession is a pharmacist, which probably seems an odd mix to be running social housing. But I've worked in education and social services and etc. But, the thing for me, this was the first job, and I thought, great, this isn't a health-related job. The first time in my career. Well, news to me, it is absolutely a health-related issue. And I spoke at the Older People's Network, and somebody took issue and said, it's not about health. And I said, actually, it is about health. It's about maintaining health. And in order to help people maintain their health, you have to understand the health-related conditions. And as you'd imagine, there's a whole range of mental health issues as well. So our staff, we're starting what we're calling the gold card. You may recognise the word, the gold card for older people. So our staff will have that. Now, our gold card consists of training for our staff, that they understand elder abuse, that they've been trained on the kind of devices that older people can use, that they understand dementia, they understand mental health, they understand what ageing means to older people. Now, this is quite unique in sort of the social housing space. But that's what we need, because for our staff, all of our staff, it doesn't matter if you're an accounts clerk or you're a community manager, you need to be able to respond appropriately. So we're going through intensive training to make sure that our staff can respond appropriately. We've done lots of training in Tenancy Act and resolving issues and conflict behaviour, and we've done all of that, and we've done some old people mental health, but we're really strengthening that. Because what Homeru is, it's the specialist provider of social housing for older people. We're not just the biggest, but we are going to be, and we believe we are the best, because we add a value. It's not just about the properties, we add value to older people's lives. So I could go on and on about all of the things we do for people, but you can read it there again. We do link with Anglican City Mission, Anglican Church, Age Concern, local boards. And I see Daniel, thank you. Daniel's been very good, and the Manurewa board has been fantastic to support us and help us, if we have an issue. So one of the things we've got out at the Manurewa area is there was a community house which was used by, 3 tenants. So one of the priorities this year, this CapEx, is to rip that out and make that a community space and have an office in there that other organisations can use. The budgetary services, counselling services, all the things that people need. So we try and improve connectivity, and some of that is about smart technology, because we're at 23 staff, we've got small people, we have to use it. So once again, Selwyn has a fabulous tanning monitoring program, and it's a pilot we're running, where we have a nurse on board who can talk to people through a system and through a device, not only to feed back to their doctor to improve their health, but as we've found out, to improve their connectivity, because it's that daily conversations with people, which is the key. And that really is life-changing. It changes people's lives just by having a connection and having a conversation. Because we're fortunate, a lot of our tenants have got lots of family and whānau around them, but there are a range of people who don't, and they don't always put their hands up. So the skill of our organisation is to making sure we can wiggle out and try and find those people who want some help. You know, if you want to sit in your dressing gown and slippers all day and stare out the window, and that's what makes you feel happy, great. We'll support that. But if you're sitting there because you don't know how to get out and you don't know who to talk to, or there's a language issue, well, you know, that's our job to help support you and network with people. So the other part of the business, as I've said, is to make sure that we utilise the resources of the property and include the building. So we partner with Panuku as our partner. Here is our fabulous building in Henderson. Penny will recognise this. This is going to be absolutely fantastic, as well as Linda over there. Fantastic building, and we're really excited. And when Linda and Penny, we were at the groundbreaking ceremony, and also Phil was there as well. What became really clear to me is that that's not a Haumaru building or a Panuku building. That's a building for the community. And it's the key thing for us, is to make sure that we are engaging appropriately with the current community and also the old community, because there's a real heart around that. And anybody, or the three of us who were there that day, really felt it. You know, there were tears when there was groundbreaking, because it was so important to the local community. They'd worked so hard to get that building out of the ground. So Haumaru's role is really just the custodian of that, to make sure that we're delivering what it is that the community wants. We're also working to grow the business. We're also working with Housing New Zealand and other organisations, because 1,412 units is a nice number, but it certainly isn't enough, and it's not going to address the increasing needs and the volume of older people requiring affordable rental accommodation in the future. So that's from me. I guess I'll hand over to Helen to answer, and we'll answer any questions that there might be.
Okay. I was a Waitakere councillor, and I think I was 52 when we started discussing that, and I've subsequently got my gold card, and we still haven't built it.
Why?
But it's getting built.
That's why there were tears, believe you me.
Councillor Casey.
Politicians have long memories, and when Haumaru was first mooted, I was very sceptical, simply because I remembered back in 2003 when the Honourable John Banks sold off almost 1,700 houses, including 129 houses, as well as all the pensioner units. And housing has always been a political football in local government until now. I think I'm very heartened when I heard you for the first time today. You're using words that I relate to. When you said, what am I looking for a person? I thought heart, you said heart. Age friendly is up there. You understand, the staff understand the needs of older people. So just all power to your elbow. My question though relates, well, I've got two questions. My question relates to growing the portfolio, because we as a council asked Panuku to fix the sentence in the Auckland plan that said that we would maintain the number of units. We now say we will at least maintain, which means we want to grow it, although we can't say that. So I'm interested, when you just finished there, that you need to grow the portfolio. I totally agree with that, especially in the isthmus where you don't exist. So that's my first question. You can think about that. The second one though is green prescription for older people as a pet, and I wondered what your view is on having a cat or a dog in the units.
Right, well, interesting. I was telling Helen that just before I came out here today, we interviewed a woman with 4 cats, actually. And, you know, the initial thought was, oh dear. But actually, you know what? If the 4 cats keep her alive and they're well maintained and they're well behaved and they're not annoying every other tenant, then I don't see that there's a problem with that. in terms of dogs, we say no dogs because there are other neighbours. The properties aren't fenced. There's sort of little units in the block, and that creates issues for other tenants. But if you're, if we take everything on a case-by-case basis, and if there's a good reason and it actually impacts your health and well-being, and we have cases where it might be an old dog that's on its last legs actually. So the old person comes with the old dog, and they're both happy and they're both quiet and they're both being looked after. Then quite honestly, I don't necessarily think there's a problem. The issue is if it affects other people in the village.
Councillor Cooper.
Excuse me,
sorry.
the other vital question about growing the portfolio.
Yes, that is a challenging question for us, and we're very pleased to have developed a really good relationship with Panuku over the last year that we've been operating. We're also thrilled to be growing the portfolio by the 40-unit dwelling in Henderson. It's a balance between trying to make bring some of the existing units up to the standard we hope that they are at the moment, setting aside money for not just refurbishments but some capital works around villages to make them safe, and then putting aside money or finding money from somewhere to develop or work with other people to do the development. We're not actually mandated to do development ourselves. Could I hand over to you, Gabby, just to expand that a little bit?
Yes, so that is the real challenge for us, because we don't own the properties. We have a lease over them, so we have to find capital funding. So the public housing plan in Sir Twyford, there is no upfront capital funding for that, so we have to think of innovative ways of doing that. So we've got a number of ideas about how we do that. We go, there are financial institutions, there are banks. There's the $20 million credit line that the council have given Panuku. There may be ways that we can use that in a smarter way and have a greater impact around that. But we absolutely are mindful that we need to grow the portfolio, and that's why a number of villages are there and have been identified and categorised as an intensification, because we can't continue to maintain 1,412 units, a number of which may well be no longer fit for purpose. The average age is 47 years.
Can I just a rejoinder? The portfolio wasn't grown by 40, it was reduced by 6 at Wilshire. And that was a long argument with David Rankin. Sorry. Used to be 46, 47, and it's now 40. Thank you for what you do.
But I think it might have been 26 of them were vacant because they were uninhabitable.
Yeah,
so
because
it was
they
actually
run
40,
them
40.
down, Ross, because they run them
I
down
know.
because they didn't want
Can't
to
help
put
but
people in
tease you,
them.
Councillor. I have Councillor Cooper.
It's really lovely to hear what's happening, and it really is a truly, I don't know what's the word, wraparound so twee now, but just a loving service, thoughtful service. That makes me feel very happy that you're doing that for our people. Just one of the things, it was lovely to be invited to one of your events on your anniversary, but what I felt really sad about is that these are not local board projects. Local board kind of got invited to everything, and I by chance got invited to one thing, which was lovely, but it would just be lovely to involve the ward councillor, because like Councillor Newman, there's often things we can help with, that we can get things maybe just pushed along a bit quicker, and have a chance to involve, because we make these decisions and they become very dry, but to be able to be involved is lovely, and so just use more power to your arm if you've got more elected members supporting you. So yeah, we'd love to be on your mailing list for those sorts of things, because we are the ones that make the decisions about the money.
Regionally funded.
Yeah, and I think all the ward councillors would.
I'll adopt a ward.
Yeah, it's regional money, it's regional, yeah. So that would be really lovely. But yeah, great work, and it's just a lovely story. Thank you.
Thank you for that. And absolutely, we're mindful and take notes that we need to work more closely with. And we appreciate and respect all the advice and the background and the experience you have, and sort of helping us make the boat go faster.
Yeah,
So
well,
thank
that's
you.
what we want to do.
Councillor Fletcher.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like a little bit of clarification, and maybe I missed it. How regularly will we have these updates going into the future?
thought twice a year at least. I think. Matthew?
I mean, we'll take a little bit of feedback. I think it's what feels appropriate and what do people want.
Well, I for one have been delighted that we've had the feedback today. This was always going to be a wonderful partnership, but I've actually asked several officers. You know, there's been a bit of an information void as a member of the governing body or of the finance committee. So I really welcome it. I thank you greatly for the work that you're doing, and it's one of those initiatives that I feel really proud of, that partnership with the Auckland Council. My late parents were members of the Selwyn Foundation, and I've watched and tracked progress from being a small child and fundraising, seeing Selwyn Oaks get off the ground, and I just see this as a whole new space where a collaborative partnership can really fill. My husband has vascular dementia, and the only question I've got that I want to put to you is, what is the trigger that you use? It's with independent living. What is the trigger you use at the very last, at the end of all of the pharmaceutical products that can be used from the quetiapines and so forth, where you actually have to proactively manage change?
Thank you for that. It's, and I'm sorry for your father, it's a very delicate and difficult, husband's delicate and difficult thing to do. So, you know, our staff aren't healthcare experts, so we have to bring in the support. When we, as a landlord or a social landlord, you know, when we become aware there is an issue and there's complexities and there may be questions about the tenant's ability to live independently, even with support. So often the trigger for us, it might be wandering, it might be, you know, sundowning at night, there might be unsettled behaviour. Then we will engage through the doctor and through the family to make sure that whatever support that person needs is available. And unfortunately, it sometimes gets to the point that the support that the person needs just can't be had within that community, within their home. So then the doctor and the medical health professionals make the appropriate choice. But the key for us is to pick up cognitive disabilities and early stages of dementia, because there's a lot of things that can be done, you know, to help support, not just the person who's suffering, but very much so the family, because it's that carer support that's really needed, and that's something that we can help with, we think, or at least help point people in the direction of.
Thank you.
Just on the first point you made, we do report against KPI 6 monthly to council through Panuku, but that's the sort of the dry information, if you like. Of course, we're more than happy to attend to talk about what we do.
Mr. Chairman, I think that this is one thing that I would like to see regular reports coming through, and really thank Helen, you know, for bringing it to us today.
No, we're noting we will make it 6 monthly, and it would seem sensible after you've done your 6 monthly report to Panuku, because some of it may be sensible to represent here. So we'll coordinate it after that, after your 6 month Panuku report, so twice a year. Matthew's making a note there. I think last, Councillor Filipina.
Thank you, Chair. And I just don't want to sort of moan, but at the launch I remember talking and saying that it's important that the councillors are involved in regards to whether it be launches, openings, sod turning, you name it, as a result of, and so it's good that it's now being mentioned again, because I think it is important. That's one. Number two, Chair, I remember even last year mentioning Haumaru and mentioning the fact that it would be important for them to come through just to give an update. I can understand why it is here at Finance and Performance in regards to the 20 million. But I thought, at least in regards to, as you said, the boring part, but it's not actually boring to us. The money part might be boring to me, because it's in there and you're doing the work that you need to do. But the everyday stuff around the region for our homes for older persons, that stuff to me is not boring. So, Chair, I'm really asking, when I asked whether the Community Development and Safety Committee, or even the Environmental and Community Committee, because of the portfolios that we have around there, not the monies, but just really what's happening on the day-to-day stuff across the region. And I think that's important, that a discussion take place to see whether having the regular updates could either go to Councillor Casey's committee or Councillor Hulse's one.
Yep.
Understand this particular one because it's around the budget that's there. But I just think should be some thought to it, and I'd like to invite a comment as to whether you feel that having an update, not about the monies, this is where it should be, but around what you've spoken about at Henderson and Manureo and other areas.
It would
So we're happy to give whatever updates would be useful to the councillors and to the different groups. And, you know, we can tailor those updates that were more meaningful to the committees that we would ask to present to.
Yeah, you may, sorry, supplement, just comment really. You may end up going to one other committee. That's the point I'm making. Here I can understand around the budget, but I think for us, and Councillor Cooper mentioned that, and the fact around the sod turning, that's where the importance is for us as councillors in our respective ward as well, and across the region. So, Chair, a discussion needs to take place, and that can happen offline. Thank you.
It may be some logic that it goes to environment and community instead, and no disrespect to Councillor Casey's committee, but it's a committee of the whole. You just might get more councillors getting a briefing and up to date. So, anyway, we'll discuss that.
We'll have a discussion. Thank you, ladies.
Discuss that for the next one. All right, well, thank you very much, Gabby, and thank you, Helen, and keep up the good work. Yeah, thank you for attending. Okay, and we have a resolution to thank them, do we? Yep, let's put that. So we are... Okay. Right, so do we have a mover for those resolutions? Councillor Simpson, Councillor Casey, second. Right, denoting. Yep, all good. Put those, all those in favour? Aye. Against? And then against, right.